As I was driving south, I had to go to Augusta the other day. There was a dead bear by the side of the road on the highway. Do you take roadkill?
Oh boy, yes we do.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we if it's salvageable, we'll get it to a processor as soon as possible. But it has to be. It depends on how it was hit, and it has to be immediate that we get it to someone.
Yeah. Sitting around for a day or two, not such a good idea.
No, not good at all.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. We're going to jump around a little bit today, packing 3 different topics into this show, including tourism down east, which may not be as wild as we like to think. We'll stock the wild Christmas tree in the wild lands, and we'll see if Maine's Hunters for the Hungry program accepts roadkill. Spoiler alert, they do. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, EBS, and Supercuts in Bangor, Brewer, and Old Town. When you're a talented hunter, you often end up with more game than you have freezer space. There's a program called Hunters for the Hungry, where you can donate your excess to soup kitchens. They'll even pay to cut it up. We start the show with Jason Hall at the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. He's the point guy in that program, and he's just standing by, waiting for the theme music to end. Well, Jason Hall, welcome to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine.
Hi, well, thank you.
Give me the basics. What is Hunters for the Hungry?
Well, Hunters for the Hungry, it's actually a state of Maine program that collects wild game through donations, poached animals, and roadkill, and our program finds a home for it at food pantries, soup kitchens, and shelters to help the less fortunate.
I'm going to guess if it's a poached animal, this comes to you from the Maine game wardens and not some hunter in the woods who said, hey, I just poached this deer. You want it?
Absolutely. We have a great relationship with many of the warden stations throughout Maine. Mm-hmm. It's actually an inland fisheries and wildlife program that the Maine Department of Agriculture runs for them. So we have a collaboration. We have a network of food pantries, soup kitchens, and shelters throughout the state of Maine. Mm. And IFW, has the product. So we work side by side and make sure it gets to families in need.
I was wondering how that worked, because this is too policy wonkish for most people, but I'm thinking to myself as I'm making this call, why is something that has to do with game animals over at ACF?
Well, ACF runs a few federal programs that concentrate on food assistance to the public. Mm-hmm. If you remember the government cheese back in the 80s,
oh, yeah.
That's one of the programs we run. So we have partnerships throughout Maine. We have a network that we deliver to these agencies. So it was a little out of IFW's league to get into the food assistance business. So we collaborated with them, and we took over that side of it.
So basically, they've got the food, you've got the distribution network.
You got it.
Okay. So what is accepted again? What game animals?
We accept moose, bear, mm-hmm. and deer.
Okay, and that's all? No.
Yes, we tried our hand at ice fishing derbies and just didn't have a very reliable processor for the fish. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of phone calls about people wanting to donate chickens and sometimes turkeys, but we don't have a reliable processor for poultry.
Yeah, okay.
So we've stuck with just the deer, the moose, and the bear.
Mm-hmm. I would think also a large game animal sort of is more efficient. If you had to process small game, rabbits, hare, whatever,
yes.
That would really be kind of time-consuming and not produce very much.
Absolutely,
okay.
and actually the state of Maine does pay for the processing of these animals.
Wow.
So what we found is if we pay for a chicken to be processed, it could be $12 a chicken. Where if we went to a local grocer and bought it, it would be $6. So
right.
it's not cost efficient to go that route in our state.
So are there contributions made to the program so that the processing fees are covered?
Absolutely. We've had several smaller donations from auction companies, from just the general public that wants to help. But a few years ago, we had the Walmart Distribution Center in Lewiston gather a bunch of avid hunters, and when they go out on weekends to hunt, they log their hours. For every 10 hours that they hunt, Walmart Corporation will donate $250 to the program.
Really?
So the first year we had close to $15,000 donated to Hunters for the Hungry. Yeah. And then each year it's been, in that ballpark. So basically, because of their generosity, they've covered all cost of the program for 3 years.
Oh, my goodness. Well, how does it normally work? Does the game come to you, you do the processing, then the distribution, or does it ever work that the game becomes available through a warden and he makes the connection directly with somebody in your distribution network or a needy family or what?
Yeah, it comes from all avenues. We have roughly 30 processors strategically placed throughout the state of Maine. A hunter will call us and say, I just landed a big buck in the Bangor area. So we have them field dress the animal, drop it off at a local processor, and then the processor sends us the bill and calls us when the animal is processed. And since we live in a big state, we try not to drive all over the state. We'll call the local food pantry and say, 2 miles away is 500-pound of moose.
Yeah.
And we match it up directly. We try to keep the donation in the location it was found.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone in Oxford County gets a deer, we try to feed the people of Oxford County.
Do you do it ever directly to families, or is it always through soup kitchens, or how does that work?
We do it directly through the soup kitchens, the food pantries, and the shelters. In the past, we tried to match it up with people in need, and it's very overwhelming.
Yeah.
So we let the food pantries do what they do best. They're on the front line, and they're serving the public, so we're kind of the supplier for them.
For everyone who ever complains that government is inefficient, that sounds like really efficient to me.
It's worked out really well. We're one of the few states where it's actually run by the government.
Yeah.
Most states it's a nonprofit, and they, and there's a lot of rules concerning wild game and how to cook it and where you can cook it.
Mm-hmm.
But Maine has really, it's been around since 1996, and it grows each year. So we've been very fortunate.
Well, I went online to see what Hunters for the Hungry is, and I discovered that you're exactly right. There are different programs in many states run by different organizations and groups and volunteers. And I was wondering if there is any kind of umbrella Hunter for the Hungry, or it's just that's the name every state uses.
I think that's the name every state uses, and they alter it. Some states it's just Hunt for the Hungry or feed the hungry through hunting. But the Hunters for the Hungry tends to be the generic term that they use in most states.
Yeah.
There is no national umbrella group that covers this.
How many hunters do you think even know about this? If I were to poll all the hunters out there, what percentage would say, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that"?
Oh boy, we've been the best kept secret in Maine for many years.
That's what I was afraid of.
I think over the last 3 years, since we've gotten our Facebook page, since we've made a presence at the Moose Lottery and other sportsman shows, our name's really growing. It wouldn't surprise me if 50% of hunters know who we are right now. And it's growing. The challenge is not all of them would donate because, let's be honest, you want to fill your own freezer first. Help your family and friends before anything goes out to others.
My guest is Jason Hall. He's at the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, and the program is called Hunters for the Hungry. Most of the donated game was dispatched by one of 3 Bs, bow, bullet, or bumper. So exactly under what circumstances does roadkill get donated to the program? We'll get into that in a moment when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Coming up, this end of the state has gotten smaller over the last 2 decades. Maybe you didn't notice. Also, wild Christmas trees on the wild lands. But first, we get back to Jason Hall at the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. He oversees a state program that connects successful hunters with people on hard times, providing excess game to those who need it. And not just hunters. Unlucky drivers can donate too. As I was driving south, I had to go to Augusta the other day. There was a dead bear by the side of the road on the highway. Do you take roadkill?
Oh boy, yes we do. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we if it's salvageable, we'll get it to a processor as soon as possible. But it has to be. It depends on how it was hit, and it has to be immediate that we get it to someone.
Yeah. Sitting around for a day or two, not such a good idea.
No, not good at all.
Yeah.
We actually just picked up a 236-pound buck in Durham, Maine. The sad thing was the gentleman just bought a new vehicle, and while he had less than 4,000 miles on it, was driving home, and the deer sprinted in front of him.
I don't think anybody ever hits a deer with an old car.
That's
They're all new.
It can't be like a 1963 Buick. It has to be brand new.
One I was just about to junk. That's the one I want to hit the deer with.
That's right.
How about, do you take donations year-round, or is this just during hunting season?
We do. There's a lot of farms in Maine that can get predation permits through IFW.
Mm-hmm.
If the critters are ruining their crops, they get this permit that allows them to kind of harvest some of the animals. So we do get year-round donations. We've worked with groups that do like animal control on some of the islands off of Maine
Mm-hmm.
to control the tick population. They have to control the deer population. So sometimes those individual hunting seasons on the islands are a little longer than the regular state of Maine rules.
Yeah.
So we've definitely gotten donations year-round. There's roadkills year-round. And unfortunately, there's poached animals year-round as well.
Do you actually take meat that has already been processed?
We do. A lot of times people will have an animal in their freezer, and they're getting ready for next year's hunt. So we'll take we'll help clean out your freezer and get it to people in need to make room for the next harvest.
Are there any standards about how long it was in the freezer?
There is. We've it has to be under 12 months.
Okay.
Anything over 12 months, and we kind of cringe.
Yeah. Yeah. You should look in my freezer at home.
Yeah, I know.
You want to cringe? So if I need some room in the freezer and some of this moose just has to go, anything up to a year old is okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Why not? I mean, we touched about duck and grouse, which would be small, but turkey seems a little bigger. Why not that?
It's just the lack of poultry processing in Maine.
Oh, okay.
And the cost associated with it. I could go to the local grocer and just pay a fraction of the cost. As much as I want to, help the local economy,
yeah.
We have to be accountable to, how we spend the money here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's say, how do people contact you, either with donations of food or donations with money?
The best way to contact us is we have an 800 number.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually an 888 number for Dear Me, which is 888-433-3763.
Mm-hmm.
And we will help them coordinate getting to the local processor. We've also been known if the hunter is in a region that's not even close to a processor, we've been known in our travels with the other programs to swing by and pick up the animal and deliver for them.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been known to scare a few people when we drive around with 4 to 6 deer in the back of a truck.
Yeah, really.
And then after that, we just match it up, to the closest pantry that's involved with Hunters for the Hungry.
Yeah, and if a business wants to contribute as well financially or in some kind of employee support, it would be the same number to call?
Absolutely, yes.
Well, I found you by Googling Maine Hunters for the Hungry, and that took me right to the site at ACF's website.
Yes, yeah.
So that's the way to go?
That's the best way to go. There's more information actually on the Facebook site. So if you do a Facebook search for Maine Hunters for the Hungry, there's some. We have some recipes on there. We have information. We give thanks to a lot of the people that have helped make this a successful program. And there's all the information you need is on the Facebook page as well. We've grown this program every year for the last 3 or 4 years. It's very successful right now, and we just hope everyone continues to support us.
So as you're running this, what does it say on your resume? I move meat around?
I don't know if it's Roadkill King or Food Dude. I'm not quite sure.
Food Dude. That's Jason Hall. The program is Hunters for the Hungry. And if you want to help or just get more information, the number is toll-free, 888-4DEAR-ME. 4DEAR-ME. Just over a week ago, a first-of-its-kind event happened over at Schoodic Point, where you'll find the Schoodic Education and Research Center, which hosted this event. The state of Maine is actually divided up into 8 different tourism regions. The region that contains Washington and Hancock counties is called the Down East and Acadia Regional Tourism, or DART for short. DART has been around for quite a while, but the group just had its first ever regional summit. The group talked about how to promote tourism down east and recognized some folks who have been doing it particularly well over the last year. And most of that was businesses talking to businesses. But there were a couple of highlights I'd like to share for a moment on this show. Carol Ann Willette, director of the Maine Office of Tourism, put on a good presentation showing just how good that office is getting at marketing the state. Most of the tourism numbers are up quite a bit, and data about visitation is getting really sophisticated these days. So that was good. But what really opened my eyes was a quick presentation from David Cole. David is city manager of Ellsworth right now, but that's just the latest in his long string of helping develop Maine's economy. I got to know him when he was head of Eastern Maine Development Corporation years ago, and later as the commissioner of the Maine Department of Transportation. His eye-opening thoughts in just a moment. But first, a nice welcome from Senator Angus King.
It's an honor for me to have an opportunity to join you, if only electronically, for a few minutes today during your important conference. It's no secret that tourism and visitors are one of the mainstays of the Maine economy. Not the whole economy, but a very significant part. And what you're doing in preparing the Down East and Acadia region for a greater growth and support of the tourism industry is very important. Mary and I had a great time down east this summer. We took a break and went to Cobscook Bay State Park with our RV, spent 2 or 3 days there, then came down and helped open the new RV park at Schoodic. As you know, we love RVing. We just had another trip in Maine, up in the mountains and then down to the coast. And being up in Down East, I happen to think Cobscook Bay State Park is one of the most beautiful places in America. And we had a wonderful time up there, a great park staff, and also the many attractions that are in that region. Tourism is a natural for us. It complements the other parts of the Maine economy. And what you're doing to plan, think ahead, award, reward, recognize the leadership of people in the tourism and visitor community in that region is just tremendously important. I once had the experience, I used to go down, when I was in Augusta, I used to go to Kittery each year to greet tourists coming into the state on Memorial Day weekend. It was kind of fun to say, "Welcome to Maine, I'm the governor." And the people from New Jersey would say, "Yeah, and I'm King George V." But in any case, I would greet them and often would ask them, "So where are you headed?" It was astounding the number that were headed for Acadia. And it was probably, 75 or 80% of the people coming in, that's where they were going. By the way, many of them thought Acadia was about an hour from Kittery, so, there were some suggestions for places in between. But Acadia is such a tremendous magnet, and it gives us an opportunity to try to draw some of those people not away from Acadia, but to add to their trip to Acadia, to go further up the coast and into the mid-coast. It's like living next to the Statue of Liberty, and we ought to be taking advantage of those literally millions of people who come to Maine to enjoy the incomparable beauty of Acadia. So lots of opportunity, and have a great meeting, and you'll see Mary and I down east sooner rather than later. Have a great day.
Senator Angus King opening up the Down East and Acadia Regional Tourism Conference a week ago. Up next, David Cole is going to whack me upside the head. David was Transportation Commissioner in the Baldacci administration and knows something about moving people around the state. What he had to say made me realize this end of the state has shrunk right beneath me, and I never even thought about it. We'll see if you agree when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine resumes in a moment on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. I'm at a tourism conference in Down East Maine. There are about 80 of us in the room here at Schoodic Educational Research Center. David Cole is talking. He's now Ellsworth City Manager. He was Commissioner of Transportation under Governor Baldacci, and before that, head of Eastern Maine Development Corporation. What David has to say makes me realize I'm guilty of not recognizing the difference some significant changes in the area have made. If you've lived in this area a long time, you remember what Route 9, the airline, used to look like. It was a cowpath driven mostly by big yellow Sunbury trucks from Canada. If you ever went to Canada from here, you remember what it was like crossing the border on a busy summer weekend. You could spend a couple of hours in Calais waiting your turn and a couple of hours in St. Stephen on the way back. All that has changed, but it's easy to forget how much. David Cole.
So, today I want to focus on the logistics of tourism. And I say logistics, it's more than just transportation. But in this day and age, even the word tourist perhaps is outdated a bit. Matter of fact, how do you know when you're on vacation sometimes in this day and age, right? You know, if my wife takes me to Salt Lake City for a conference, I'm a visitor, I'm a tourist, but I'm doing work from there if I can. You know, the line between people's personal life and business life, what's a vacation, what's a combination, all that stuff comes into play. Secondly, the very essence of what Maine has to offer is far-flung. It's all over the place, and if you don't work out the logistics of being able to move people around and get them to the places they want to go, it ain't the old days where you just threw the kids in the back of the station wagon and took off. But in this day and age, people are time-driven. Time is precious. It's the internet age. People need to be connected. They need to understand. So we need to be able to offer the logistics that are needed. From a high-level view, first comment is we're not remote. A lot of people think Maine's remote. We're not remote. Matter of fact, this region, Maine, and this region is nestled between two corridors, one being the I-95 corridor and the other being what I call the St. Lawrence Great Lake corridor from Quebec to Chicago. These two corridors represent 40% of the GDP of North America, all within that area. Those people in those little dots way out there, they're remote, but we're not. Now, during my time at DOT, we working with other states and provinces initiated called the Can-Am Connection Study, because economic development, whether it's travel and tourism, whether it's freight, whatever form it takes, requires connectivity, right? And of course, as you all know, Maine is kind of a oddity. We have 600 miles of Canadian border in Maine. We're surrounded by more Canada in the ocean than we are the rest of the United States. So this effort sought to seek out better ways to connect the Maritimes, Maine, northern New England, and upper Canada. And before I bring it back down to that big white glob called the I-95 corridor, I do want to mention that there have been a number of investments in recent years to improve east-west connections within the state of Maine into the Maritimes, into Quebec. A lot of times these improvements kind of melt away and from your memory what it used to be like. Route 9, though. Well, the old-timers here, like me, right? You remember those hairpin turns? You get to the bottom of the hill, a big rock and a stump there. There were no shoulders. They were dirt, right? Remember that? Today, Route 9 is one of the finest roads off the interstate system. There's miles and miles of passing lanes. Between that and the new border crossing at Calais, it's really changed the transportation dynamic between Maine and the Maritimes. In fact, this border crossing took an hour's time off between getting from Bangor to St. John. That doesn't even include the time saved once Route 9 was rebuilt, over a 10-year period. Those things pull us closer together, and it makes it more feasible for Canadians to visit here and for us to visit Canada.
Let me stop it right there. David Cole is right. This end of Maine shrunk. It now takes an hour less to get to the border and cross it. Maybe you remember what it was like 25 years ago. Back then, Canadians used to take buses from New Brunswick to shop all weekend at the Bangor Mall. And that was before the road was improved. But that's kind of over now. Back then, we never really talked about two-nation vacations. Nowadays, when we wonder how do we get tourists to spend their money north of Bar Harbor, we don't just dangle Washington County out there as an attractive, uncrowded place to go. We actively encourage motorists to get down east and even cross the border into New Brunswick. The two-nation vacation. There's a whole package of tourist attractions that exist north of Acadia, especially if we dangle Atlantic Canada out there as bait too. We're slowly starting to advertise that, and it's made possible by by transportation improvements that we kind of forgot about, because it all got built out slowly over time and we got used to it before we realized what a difference it could make. And what about going the other way, toward Quebec?
And just likewise, connections up through Cobourg-Gore. Anybody driven up through Cobourg-Gore recent time to Montreal? Quite a difference, right? Up to Quebec, up through Jackman. Great improvements. Route 2 into New Hampshire, which is another backdoor way to connect with Canada. And these improvements in the interior infrastructure to Canada are fitting locations from Lubec.
Now picture this. The I-95 corridor along the eastern seaboard of the United States is where most of the economy of this side of the continent is booming. If you're near the highway, things are good. Even in Maine, if you're near I-95, the economy is much better than if you're not. And then there is one place that is actually growing economically faster than anywhere else in Maine. And it's a spot where the Route 1 coastal corridor and the I-95 corridor nearly come together. It's a city that you've watched change dramatically over the last couple of decades. New development, superstores, new traffic patterns to handle all that growth.
Ellsworth today is only 23 miles from the interstate. Imagine the world back before the I-395 extension out to 1A. Remember that? You had to drive from Ellsworth on 1A, which wasn't much better than the old Route 9. No passing lanes, hairpin turns at Green Lake, gravel shoulders, all of that. And then you had to work your way through downtown Brewer, downtown Bangor, and work your way out to Paul Bunyan, get on the interstate. That's changed. Today, with all the improvements to 1A and the 395 corridor, Ellsworth and that entire region, and plus the corridor, Route 1 corridor it serves all the way up to Lubec and beyond, has been pulled probably at least a third closer together because of that. I mean, the numbers have changed dramatically. And these are the series of improvements from Bar Harbor to Bangor to Bar Harbor that were done in the 2000s over the last 10 years. It's been substantial. Times have gone down greatly. And there in Ellsworth, if you look at Ellsworth, it's always been kind of a coastal community. I mean, there's a few miles of coastline on the Union River Bay. But within its sphere, most cities near the coast, you draw a circle around them, half of it's water. In the case of Ellsworth, it's fortunate now to have that connection to the interstate. You can be the interstate within a half hour now, but you can also be within all those tributaries down the coastline. I don't know how many miles. Anybody know how many miles of coastline there is in Hancock County? Nobody's got out and measured it. I mean, it's got to be 800, 1,000. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's got to be. And again, that all leads to Ellsworth. So Ellsworth's been in a good position. Ellsworth in the last census grew by 19%. And this is not a suburb of Portland or Bangor. This is an independent commerce center growing at that rate. And I say it's because of the improved logistics have pulled the coast and the I-95 corridor together through those means. So Ellsworth now has the best of both worlds.
That's David Cole, former Transportation Commissioner and former head of Eastern Maine Development Corporation, speaking to a Downeastern Acadia regional tourism shindig about a week ago. This is a show about outdoor fun and adventure, but when I come across tidbits like this, I'll share them with you from time to time, because maybe you also watch the changes in Maine and wonder, why did that happen? Well, up next, we're stalking the wild Christmas tree on the wild lands. By the time we get to the other side of the sponsor break, we'll be in Orland. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket, with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. And now, we're going to the Wild Lands, which is the Great Pond Mountain Conservation Trust in East Orland. Every year, they set aside 3 hours to cut your own Christmas tree, selecting from the wild balsams that grow in the wild lands. It's part fundraiser, part funraiser, with hay rides and cider, too. Sherry Domina is executive director, so welcome to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, Sherry.
Thank you.
So Sunday, November 29th, noon to 3 o'clock, for just 3 hours, you have a Christmas tree event going on. I've done that before, so I know what it is, but why don't you start by explaining it?
Well, we've done this for about 8 years now in the Great Pond Mountain Wildlands in Orland. And people can come, and for a charge of $25, you can pretty much bring your whole family. And you get to cut a Christmas tree of your own, as well as there's a hayride, there's hot cocoa and cookies and a bonfire. And it's just a nice afternoon to enjoy outside with the people you love and come away with a tree, hopefully.
I certainly did it. I think it was your first year, maybe 8 years ago. And it was a gas. I mean, there's one thing about going to a Christmas tree farm and cutting something that's been well tended for most of its adult life. And then there's something different about going out and cutting a wild balsam from a whole stand of balsams. That's actually pretty cool.
It is. It's a different sort of a tree. So it's, for people who don't want perfectly sheared, completely conical trees, this is for you. They are wild trees. They do tend to be open grown, so they're not complete Charlie Brown trees, but they do leave a little more room for ornament. They tend to be sort of lighter and airier looking, and some people just prefer that look. So every year this event changes a little bit. It moves around the property, and the trees, the quality and quantity of trees changes. This year we're kind of in a transition year, so we're doing it along the Valley Road in the wildlands. Some of the trees are a little bit larger. We're getting excited about a new crop of trees that's coming in. So in a couple of years, you're going to have a lot of wonderful new smaller balsams. This year we're sort of dealing with some stuff that's a little bit larger, and it's maybe a little bit more of an adventure this year to find your tree, let's put it that way. So some years it's easier than others, and we're kind of in one of those in-between years.
Yeah. You sort of anticipated my next question because, as I said, I did it 8 years ago, and you've been doing it ever since. I was just wondering if there are any trees left.
Well, there are.
Yeah.
Of course, we've got, millions and millions of trees in there. When we first purchased the property, the Land Trust bought the property in 2005. It had been harvested, and so there were a number of areas with small balsam firs coming in. So there was a few years of really great Christmas trees. Now they're getting a little bit harder to find, a little fewer and farther between, and some of the original trees, of course, have gotten quite large. But we do have some areas now where we're nurturing new trees that will be, as I mentioned, will be ready in a couple of years, as well as we paid a couple of high school kids this year to come in and clear out about 3 acres of good balsam fir habitat and leave some seed trees. So we're thinking ahead to the next, 5 to 10 years in the next crop.
Well, because it really is a very popular event. As you say, it's not just going to get a tree. It's the hayride, it's the snacks and food and cider. It's just the whole package. And we will have some pre-cut trees there as well. So if you don't find a tree to your liking that's growing in the woods, we're going to have some nice ones that volunteers have gone out and scouted already and brought in for people. So we expect that everybody will come away with something. As well as, you're welcome to cut greens for wreaths and things like that, for decorating. There'll be something for everybody, and it's just overall, the volunteers love being out there. The people come out and they love being out there. It's just a beautiful afternoon in the woods. Okay, well, you park at the gate right there on Route 1.
No, you can drive in.
Oh, you can? When did that start?
Going to be, we do that pretty much every year for this event. Because we move it all around the property. So this year you drive in about 1.25 miles from the Route 1 gate. You're driving 1.4 miles from the Route 1 gate. There'll be plenty of parking, and the hayride will start there, and it'll be about a mile-long hayride round trip.
See, that's already different than the first year you did it, because I remember parking right there on Route 1, and I think we end up walking in, but we get the hayride back. So,
yeah, that may have, and it varies, too, if it snows. So
right,
it changes up a little every year. Last year, as you recall, we had about 1 foot of snow at this point.
Well, that was the next question, I suppose. Do you plow in order to get cars in, or are you just going to have to arrange alternative transportation to get people to the trees?
If it snows heavily, we will go with our rain date or snow date, which is December 6th. But if it snows just a little bit, we do plow in. We make it easy for people to get in and out. And we will put more information up on either our Facebook page for Great Pond Mountain Conservation Trust or our website, which is www.greatpondtrust.org.
So at this point, can you actually drive up to exactly where the trees are, or do you still have to do a little bit of walking or hay riding to get there?
We're gonna give people the hayride into one of the best tree locations. So it would be about a half-mile hayride. You jump off, you can whack around in the woods, find your tree, come back, and then you put the tree up on the wagon, so it gets the ride back to your car. Mm-hmm. And people can walk as well. We do every year have some people that would just rather walk. So that's up to you.
Well, the trails are so nice in there that I would think walking is actually kind of enjoyable. Now, once you get back to the car, do you have help tying it on, or is that all up to you?
Most people just bring twine and do it up, but we do have people there. We have all kinds of volunteers that come out for this, so people will help you select your tree, people will help you cut your tree, they'll help you tie it on your car, so whatever you need help with, there are plenty of people there to do it, and I've even seen people shoving trees into their back seat. So there's always some way to get your tree out.
Yeah. Do you bring your own saw?
You can bring your own saw, but we will have saws available as well.
Okay. How about chainsaws?
We don't allow chainsaws just for safety reasons, and we encourage you to cut down a tree that's small enough to cut down with a handsaw. Mm-hmm. So, no chainsaws, please.
Yeah. Now, you're only doing this for 3 hours, which strikes me as short but concentrated. Have you done it longer in the past, or is it just you've decided to just do 3 hours and that's it?
Well, we always do it from noon to 3. Reason being is that by 3 o'clock it's getting dark, and we would like to wrap up, and it's kind of cold before noon. So noon to 3 seems to be the sweet spot, and we've done it in the past. We've done it 2 weekends. This year we're just doing it November 29th with a rain date of the following Sunday, December 6th. Mm-hmm. And again, reason being because we're a little shy on trees this year.
Huh, okay. Well, how many trees do you think you'll be carrying out on a good day?
We normally sell about 40 to 50 trees a day, mm-hmm. and that represents maybe about that many families that come. So we've gotten upwards of 300 people over this 2-weekend event. Mm-hmm. So we expect that, we will probably sell about that many trees again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to be clear, this is going to be happening next weekend, the weekend after Thanksgiving, on Sunday from noon to 3. But on Saturday, you've also got a wreath-making demonstration. Tell me about it.
Well, we have a wreath-making workshop. So we have a volunteer. Her name is Connie Fuller. She's done this for a few years now. She will teach you the basics of making your own wreath. We will provide the greens, which will come from the wildlands. We'll also provide the wreath ring and the wire. So you just need to sign up ahead of time because space is limited. Mm-hmm. You can sign up at our office, 469-6929, or info@greatpondtrust.org. From 1 to 3 p.m. on Saturday, November 28th, and you can take a wreath home.
Sherry Domina is my guest. She's Executive Director of the Great Pond Mountain Conservation Trust in Orland, where they will do some wreath making and Christmas tree cutting next weekend. If you've never been in the wildlands, we'll cover that in a moment. Truth is, I haven't set foot there in at least 5 years, so I've got some catching up to do, too. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Next weekend, the Wildlands in Orland invites you to go cut a wild balsam for your Christmas tree this year. It'll be noon to 3 on Sunday, the 29th. Sherry Domina is Executive Director. She's my guest, and I've walked the trails in there before, Sherry, but I have to confess it's been at least 5 years, probably 6. Has anything changed?
Well, the trees are getting bigger. That's certainly one thing that's changed. And we do have more trails that volunteers have blazed. You can get, we just came out this summer with a brand new 18 by 20 full color map of the wildlands. It's been updated this summer with some new trails. It also gives you all the information on the trails, so how difficult they are and where they are and how long they are and all that, as well as some ideas for things to do with your family in the wildlands. Mm-hmm. And that map is available at our office in Bucksport, or it's also for sale at Bookstacks in Bucksport for $3 a piece. You can pick them up there.
Now, when I first walked it, which really was 7-8 years ago, it was really rather cut over. That property had been fairly heavily harvested before it came into your hands. I take it everything's starting to really grow up after nearly a decade.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely the trees have gotten quite large. It's a little more shady. And, we've had, it's been 10 years now, so it's changing.
Well, there's a plus side to having had a recent harvest in there before you took over, and that is the road system that was in there to get the trees out was actually pretty solid. And so compared to other land trust conservation type properties elsewhere in the state, the trail system in this one is very solid and approachable for someone who wants to mountain bike in the property or even horseback ride or do other things on a trail system that's pretty solid.
Well, we have about 15 miles of gravel roads that are kind of comparable to the carriage roads in Acadia. And people do come in, they bring horses. Yes, you can bicycle. We don't have a lot of single-track mountain bike trails, but it's great for biking on the road. It's great for teaching your kid how to ride a bike, especially if you go during the week when the gates close. A lot of people walking dogs and just a variety of pursuits. We got a snowmobile trail that goes through portions of the property. So there are a lot of ways to enjoy it, and we've purchased ourselves a tractor this year to maintain the road, so that was a big help, especially after that September 30th storm.
It would be a pretty good property for cross-country skiing, too.
It is, obviously the snow is different every year, but there's always somebody that's in there making tracks, and we actually are doing some negotiating and hoping to get somebody in there to groom this year, at least some of the trails for skiing. So last year was fabulous skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling. A lot went on in there last year. It was a lot of fun.
Now, I have to admit, I'm doing all this from memory, but my recollection is you've got something like, 3,400 acres?
4,500 acres.
Okay, yeah. That's a big property. That's compared to conservation properties for land trust in the state. That's actually one of the more sizable ones.
For an individual property, especially along Route 1 in coastal Maine, it's a good-sized piece of land. And we added, so when we purchased the property in 2005, it was about 4,300 acres. We added about another 200 acres in 2012, including the summit of Great Pond Mountain. So, and if you go check out the Great Pond Mountain Trail, which is called the Stewart Groves Path, we just finished working with the Maine Conservation Corps crew. They were here for 4 weeks in mid-October to mid-November, and they just completed an overhaul of the first third of the mile of trail. So there's amazing, beautiful stone staircases now, retaining walls. They just really did a lot of work to improve the first part of that trail.
You've got several different parcels in there, too, if I remember correctly. You've got a fairly main trail system off Route 1. Then there's another one over by the fish hatchery somewhere.
Yeah, the property is in two pieces that kind of just touch at a corner. So, one piece is a little over 1,000 acres, and that's the piece that includes the Great Pond Mountain Trail. It's got a couple miles of frontage on the Dead River. And then the other side is about 3,400 acres that includes the bulk of the trail systems. Mm-hmm. I will mention also just this time of year we do allow hunting, so we encourage people if they're going out for a walk to wear blaze on.
Mm-hmm. Well, give me official directions to the Christmas tree cutting that's coming up next weekend.
So the gate that will be open for that is what we call the South Gate on Route 1, which is just a little bit, what would you call it? I guess just a little bit south of Route 176, which is the Surrey Road. So we're in East Orland. What else can I tell you about that?
My recollection is you can easily drive by that entrance without seeing it if you're not paying attention.
We have a large sign up there now.
You do?
It's,
Okay.
It's pretty visible, yeah. There's a large sign right out on the road. And we also have great big banners up that will say Christmas tree event. So you really won't be able to miss it.
So if you're coming up from the south, which is what most of the population is going to be doing, and you get up to Route 176, you've gone too far.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, I'm doing that from memory. I remember having to turn around there several times.
Yeah. And I'm always surprised at how many people come to this event from Mount Desert Island. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't think so, but a lot of people come from Bar Harbor, Southwest Harbor, Orono, so they come from all directions.
Well, it really is one of those well-kept secrets because, frankly, Mount Desert Island can get a little crowded in summer, but I have never, even on your Christmas tree celebrations, have I been into that land trust where there are a whole lot of people crowding me out.
No, it's a good place to get away from it all, although, surprisingly on a beautiful fall weekend, sometimes that parking lot is chock full there on Route 1. So, in fact, this morning I was just there about 2 hours ago, and there were probably 5 cars in the parking lot. So there's almost always somebody in there nowadays, especially on a nice day. Mm-hmm. And but chances are you won't see them.
All right, what is your website once again?
It's www.greatpondtrust.org.
And the Christmas tree cutting is going to happen on Sunday, November 29th from noon to 3.
Yes.
That's Sherry Domina, Executive Director of the Great Pond Mountain Conservation Trust, steward of the wildlands in Orland. If you've never explored those trails, I do recommend it. As land trust properties go, this one's pretty big, and some of the vistas are pretty impressive. It's great year-round. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, EBS, and Supercuts at Bangor Brewer in Old Town. This show airs every Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 8, and online afterwards at 929theticket.com. In fact, all of the previous shows are archived in the web at 929theticket.com. Thanks for listening. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.